listening to Unravel with Natalie Denise.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to Nightly with Natalie, where I bring you guys the latest from the Daily Traffic, where I source my news. I hope you guys had a great weekend. Guys, just an update. I shot the Chris Cornell, Chester Bennington intro documentary yesterday. So I am working on the editing. I've got everything laid out, so it's not going to be it's going to be a big feat, but it's not going to be as big as before, because before, when I did this the first time, it's kind of it was unorganized and it made it harder for me, but now everything's like laid out in a blueprint, so I'm super excited for it. It is going to be published within, I want to say, a week. So I'm additionally very excited for this to come out. It's been long awaited. It's a completely different what's going on here? It's a completely different subject outside of what we regularly talk here. But if you guys are fans of Chester Bennington, Chris Cornell, then this is going to be for you. It was about these rockers who died, for those that don't know, because some people don't know who they are, that died mysterious deaths back in 2017. And they died within May, June, July, about like a month and a half from each other. So it was additionally kind of just curious what happened. All right, so we've got a lot of these stories here. Here we go. Okay, I wanted to pull one up that these exploitation stories always. And then there was a one on Ketanji Brown that was Ketanji Brown, because yes, there is an update. It was like a sex torture. It was a really dark one here. Let me just pull this up. There we go. Okay, so we're going to begin with this one here. Okay, just heed warning that this is going to be a dark one, okay? Like, this story is going to be dark. This is in regards to Ketanji Brown, who is in to be the next justice of the highest court of the land in the United States. Let me say hi to the chat. What's going on, Keem? Thank you so much for modding for me. Always. Hello, Mark. Hello, Sandra. What's up, Prince? What's up, Ken? So glad you guys can join me today. All right, let's get started. Let's do this. Fix the screen. All right, so this one came out over the weekend. Actually, this was on Friday. Ketanji Brown Jackson chose leniency even in baby sex torture cases. In the 8 child porn cases that came before her court, former DC District Court Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson heard horrifying details of sadomasochistic torture of young kids, including infants and toddlers. These are things that you're going to find on the dark web, which is not accessible by the regular websites like www. No. It's like, if you guys never heard of the dark web before, that is where they access it through it's kind of like, it's called a Tor. So it's just kind of like an onion layer. It's like you have to go through layers of security in order to access this dark web. So torture of infants and toddlers, yet challenge the disturbing evidence presented by prosecutors. She heard the details, but she didn't challenge the disturbing evidence presented by prosecutors and disregarded their prison recommendations to give the lightest possible punishments in each case, according to the transcripts of sentencing hearings obtained by the Post. So this is coming from the New York Post. In some cases, she even apologized to some of the kiddie porn perverts for having to follow the statuses, which she called substantially flawed. Over and over, the record reveals Jackson made excuses for the sex fiends' criminal behavior and cut them slack in defiance, and investigators and prosecutors and sometimes even probation officers serving her court, who argued for tougher sentences because the cases were particularly egregious or the defendants were remorseful. The fuller record of her orders as trial judge, detailed here for the first time, undercuts the White House's Senate Democrats' argument that her sentences were within normal range or mainstream of child porn cases as they try to defend the Supreme Court nod against growing allegations she is soft on crime. Jackson, 51, who tried the cases as an Obama appointee from 2013 to 2021, was nominated earlier this year by you know who. By you know who. Here's some details. As if this wasn't already horrific enough. Listen to these details. In July of 2020, this was very recent. This was only 2 years ago. Jackson gave a bare minimum sentence to a defendant convicted of distributing images and videos of infants being sexually abused and who had boasted of molesting his 13-year-old cousin, even though she knew the defendant refused to take full responsibility for his crimes. A transcript reveals in 2018, Christopher Michael Downs was busted trading child porn in a private online chat room, pedos only, including images of adult males raping prepubescent female children. A prepubescent female child. According to the court records, he posted 33 graphic photos, including an image of a naked female child as young as 2 years old. Downs, then 30, told the group, "I once fooled around with my 13-year-old cousin." He also uploaded a 10-second video of a prepubescent female lying in a bathtub and with an adult male inserting. Oh gosh, no. Dude, I can't read that sentence. I can't read that sentence. I can't read that sentence. This is completely sick. These are details in the case that she gave a lenient sentence in, by the way. He uploaded a 10-second video of a child, a little girl, with an adult male. She was lying in a bathtub with an adult male inserting the his what. I can't even finish it. I'm like, we go through this every single day where we read stories after stories after stories after stories, and each one is shocking. But I mean, the extremely shocking things like this. So she heard this evidence. Tell me in the comments what you would have done hearing this type of evidence. Just giving them lenient sentences. You have to be you blind, demonic? Like, how can you hear details like this and say, oh yeah, you deserve the minimum sentence? Okay. Jackson herself admitted that the felon was a risk of reoffending. The transcript further reveals, but she declined to enhance his prison time based on the amount of porn he distributed, arguing such enhancements that were outdated and substantially flawed. She acknowledged the average sentence nationally for similarly situated defendants was 81 months, but she gave him the statutory mandatory minimum sentence for 60 months, which was short of nearly 6 years prosecutors asked for. In addition, Jackson gave him credit for time served starting from when he was first incarcerated in October of 2018. So technically, she only gave him 38 months or a little over 3 years in the pen. Downs is scheduled for release in December. What the hell? He's scheduled for release in December. This guy. You thought that was enough? Get this. In her April 2021 sentencing of child porn distributor Ryan Manning Cooper Jackson contradicted the findings of prosecutors, dismissing the crimes they described on the more egregious or extreme spectrum. The child of child porn as not especially egregious. Among the more than 600 images prosecutors told the judge he traded were sexually explicit pics depicting bondage of infants and toddlers. Prosecutors also busted him with a video of a prepubescent boy being penetrated. Both ways. I really don't express that I have so much disdain for somebody to the point of hate, but this is pretty much going straight to that spectrum for somebody to allow children to be unjustified in this manner. This is her response. I'm really reluctant to get into the nature of porn, Jackson told the court before sentencing Cooper to prison time short of what the prosecution recommended. I don't find persuasive the government's arguments concerning why they think this is particularly egregious child pornography offense, which means I struggle to find a good reason to impose a sentence that is more severe in this case, she argued. So CSAM material, child sexual CSAM child sexual abuse material depicting or with a little boy being abused in both ways. She did prepubescent. She did not find this a good enough reason. She didn't find this a good enough reason. And she struggles, she says. I struggle to find a good reason to impose a sentence that is more severe in this case. She struggled to find a good reason to sentence this person to the fullest extent. And he distributed this horrific content. I mean, I'm trying really to. This is. I mean, the most. Look at how long it goes to. I'm really trying to keep this together because this is aggravating, absolutely aggravating. Jackson cited mitigating factors, including letters family members sent to their describing Cooper as a kind, hardworking, dependable, loving. I have no reason to doubt those representations. Striking a sympathetic tone, she advised the defendant, "We are going to be a lot of restrictions that the law places you on because you are a convicted sex offender. You're going to need the support of these people during the next phase of your life." My gosh. In his and other cases, Jackson cited criticism of federal sentencing guidelines for child porn being outdated and too severe to justify her downward variances in prison time. Arguing such policy disagreement with the guidelines has led her to develop my own analysis of child pornography offenses. However, the experts point out that her objections are a circular argument because the criticism she cited to back her rulings is the same criticism she herself wrote years earlier as President Obama's vice chair of the U.S. Sentencing Commission. See, she served at the tip of the spear in the weakening federal sentencing policy for child pornographers as a vice chair of the U.S. Sentencing Commission, where she ignored the advice of expert witnesses who disputed her theory that child pornographers are somehow not pedophiles, said Mike Davis, president of the Article 3 Project, a Washington advocacy group for constitutional judges and rule of law. You guys know that Mitt Romney just signed support to swear this judge in. Oh my gosh. I really cannot, like, I can believe we're here, but sometimes I can't believe we're here in this time. Where you have a pedo sympathizer in the court of law. Jackson complained that the current sentencing schemes don't accurately measure the severity of child porn offenses because the computers, the internet, and digital cameras make it so easy to collect, store, and distribute illegal porn today. I mean, duh. I mean, yes. And so social media makes it easier for us to communicate too. What does that change? right? If it's like saying, you know, back in the day when they wrote you a threat letter to take, you know, a death threat, they wrote it on a piece of paper. Well, now that the internet is more accessible, you know, they can do it faster. They can send you a text message or a DM, or they can write it on their social media wall, whatever, right? It's like saying that it doesn't matter how it's done. The fact of the matter is that it's done. And it's even worse that these things are more accessible. That just means that one's, you know, sick intention to distribute, to produce and distribute this material is amplified. So therefore they must be put away for a longer period of time, because if not, because it is so easy to produce and distribute this stuff because of the technology, because of internet, perhaps maybe you might want to put them away for a longer time because they might harm more children. It's not about them, it's about the victims, it's about the children. Like, this is the most idiotic, moronic, this is the most dumbest argument I can ever read with my own two eyes, that just because technology has become innovative and it's easier to produce and distribute this stuff, oh, well, you know, it's just easier. So I'm not going to put them away for long. Highest court of the land, you guys, highest court of the land. This woman, Ketanji Brown Jackson, is being supported by people just because she is a woman and she has a race card. Sorry. But that's what we are playing on, right? That not many people, not many, but if they are, that's what they're playing on. Not the, because if they looked at all of this, which a lot of people willingly just look away, they'd be like, what the hell? If you support Ketanji Brown Jackson and your child, God forbid, ever becomes a case and she was the judge in your arena, I highly doubt you would have the same things to say about her if you support her now. Highly doubt, because your child would not get the justice that they deserve. And on vice versa, the perpetrator and the abuser wouldn't get the justice that they deserve. Prosecutors don't buy it. They say that the amount of computer files stored and or traded is still an aggravating factor that shouldn't be considered in sentencing. They say the perps are not passive actors merely receiving files haphazardly, in spite of the easier means of collecting such filth digitally. In the cases Jackson heard, prosecutors said that the defendants were caught actively soliciting child porn, storing it, and sharing it, typically in chat rooms frequented by pedophiles, or posting it on Tumblr and YouTube. Prosecutors, as well as some defense attorneys, also argue non-production of child porn is hardly a victimless crime. By collecting and distributing such porn on the internet, they say defendants are re-victimizing children who were forced to commit unspeakable acts of sexual violence for their viewing pleasure, while creating demand for future sexual exploitation of children. Exactly. Here's another one. I know you guys are not, I know we're not done. Look at this. Whoops, I lost my place. Here we go. In her 2013 sentencing of Wesley Keith Hawkins, who was busted posting videos on YouTube of boys as young as 11 years old being raped by men. I think this is I think this might be, is this different? I think this might be a subject that was brought up in her Senate hearing. But anyway, so he posted boys as young as 11 being raped by men. Jackson gave the young gay black man essentially a slap on the wrist and then apologized to him for it. Instead of 2 years in prison, prosecutors asked for, she gave him just 3 months and sent him to a lower security facility and even arranged special protections for his safety normally afforded to cops sent to prison. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is the one. This is the one that was like the first case that was brought up at her Senate hearing. And she said to him, "I'm not persuaded that 2 years in prison is necessary," she ruled, arguing that such a sentence does not account for mitigating factors, including Mr. Hawkins' future potential. Further explaining her decision, she disputed the severity of the evidence investigators presented at the suggested more than 600 images they caught him don't signal an especially heinous or egregious child pornography offense. And this is the same one that reoffended. Here's another serious example. I'm going to give you every single example that I can on this justice that is about to be sworn in. You understand? Like, I'm gonna go out and say, if anybody who is listening to this and you have active current support of Ketanji Brown Jackson, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Listen to this one. A more serious example of recidivism involved another case Jackson heard with a compassionate ear. In 2015, Neil Alexander Stewart, 31, was caught with hundreds of child sex images and videos. He confided to an undercover officer posing as a fellow child predator that he was interested in willing children between the ages of 5 and 11 and sought to meet at a DC zoo with the agent's fictional 9-year-old daughter. In one text cited by prosecutors, Stewart advised the undercover officer how to groom a child to have sexual intercourse, which they would later videotape. The trick is starting with really small toys and gradually moving up something in the same size and no, I'm not, it's and vibration is what it says. Let me just say it because it's ugly to say, but this is what he was suggesting to groom this child. In her this is Ketanji Brown Jackson enters the chat. This is her. Listen to what this is. In her 2017 sentencing, Jackson gave Stewart 57 months in jail, well short of the 97 months prosecutors asked for. The judge set aside prosecutors' warnings that Stewart was at risk for hands-on sexual abuse of children and posed a continuing threat to the community. At her Senate confirmation hearing, Ketanji Brown Jackson was asked if she was aware that Stewart had allegedly reoffended. Would it surprise you to learn that Mr. Stewart was a recidivist? Asked Senator Josh Hawley, a Missouri Republican. He has warrants issued against him for his arrest just 3 years after your sentencing. Ketanji Brown Jackson, she shrugged. That's right, she shrugged her shoulders. You know, Senator, there is data in the Sentencing Commission and elsewhere that indicates that there are serious recidivism issues. And so among the various people that I've sentenced, I'm not surprised that there are people who reoffend, and that is a terrible thing that happens in our system. Mike Davis, who previously served as the chief counsel for nominations of the former Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley, said Jackson is an activist judge with extremist views. She's not clearly a mainstream judge after she heard details of sex torture of young kids, including babies. She nonetheless disregarded the official sentencing guidelines and prosecutors' recommendations to give rock-bottom sentences in 8 of 8 cases. He said, adding that she seems more concerned about the well-being of pedophiles than the safety of your children. And thanks to her, they may be living in your neighborhood now. I'm going to say it again because I don't care. And this makes me especially angry that people would opt to choose race and gender over values and over what's right, choosing what's right from wrong. Like, I would, if this woman was Latina, I would be coming at her the same exact way. This is completely unacceptable that people actually, it just blows my mind because I've seen it on my social media. Because I do have friends that are from other views, and I've seen it on my social media where people actually supported this woman. Oh, the first black, you know what I mean? Female black justice, like, this is more important. You don't see what she's ruled? You just, and what if you did see it? Would you turn a blind eye? This is insanity. We have gone full lunatic in this country. Full on lunatic. If you support Kentanji Lee, what's her name? Kentanji Jackson Brown, you ought to be ashamed of yourself, because you are absolutely not helping the country. You have no idea. You have no idea how this is going to perpetuate the problem much further. I am just, I'm so disgusted. I'm so disgusted, and more so for her supporters than her. I mean, for her, she's illustrating exactly for her what she is, but I mean, for people who just turn a blind eye willingly at this, it's insane. We're lunatics in this country. Okay, the next one. This one is bizarre. This is coming from sfgate.com. A civilian army leader led a child porn ring, risked U.S. security. This one is super creepy. This guy, David Fraudsman, was a top civilian commander at a U.S. base in Afghanistan when he jokingly asked an IT technician for access to YouPorn, the video sharing pornographic website. During his time in war zone, Fraudsman told one woman that he hired her because he wanted to be surrounded by pretty women, and routinely called others honey, babe, cougar before he was ordered home after the military verified multiple allegations of sexual harassment. One person commented, "I would not recommend placing him back into a position of authority, but rather pursuing disciplinary actions at his home station," wrote one commanding officer when recommending that the Army ordered Fraudsman to leave his post at Bagram Airfield and return to Fort Huachuca, a major Army installation in Arizona, according to a U.S. Army investigative file obtained by the Associated Press. But when Fraudsman returned to his home station in fall of 2015, he rejoined the Network Enterprise Technology Command, the Army's information technology service provider, where he had served as a director of personnel for global command of 15,000 soldiers and civilians, according to his Army resume. By spring of the following year, he was arrested in Arizona for leading a child sex abuse ring that included an Army sergeant. So it wasn't just this guy, it was also an Army sergeant who was posting child pornography to the internet. Among the victims was Fraudsman's adopted sons. Amongst the victims was this man's adoptive sons. So let's just pause here for a second, because I know we've heard a lot of mysterious things about military bases, Fort Hood being one of them. I was talking to my friend who actually hosts the Donnie Morning Show. I'm sorry if I chopped that up or if I didn't get the words right, but he was he's a retired veteran, and he was talking about this, like, in truth, like, look, there's a lot of things that go on. The Vanessa, what is her last name? The Hispanic girl that was found dead, her body was found. There's some suspected other theories about her death that includes human trafficking. But we hear little stories here and there about these soldiers that, like, go haywire, and they smuggle. For instance, just last week we read a story of two soldiers that were smuggling immigrants in, and it's like the big question is, who was paying you and ordering you to do that, right? So in the most noblest positions, we would want these people to act right, people who should be honored with by serving our country, but some of them, not all, but some of them have bad intentions. So it wasn't just him, it was him and an army sergeant that were posting child pornography to the internet. One of them was his son. Frozman pleaded guilty to sex abuse charges in 2016 and is serving a 17-year sentence, but records reviewed by the AP showed that U.S. Army and the state of Arizona missed or ignored multiple red flags over more than a decade. Let me repeat that again. Because we have got to ask true questions about all positions. I don't care who it is. Like I said, Mitt Romney, just with Ketanji Brown Jackson, supported her being sworn in. I'm going to call everybody out. Okay? I don't care what noble position you have. I don't care if you're serving. If you're doing this, you need to be called out. So let me read that again. Records revealed by the AP, the Associated Press, showed that the U.S. Army and the state of Arizona missed or ignored multiple red flags over more than a decade, which allowed Frodsham to allegedly abuse his adopted son and other children for years. 4 years. All while putting national security at risk. That's right. The state permitted Frodsham and his wife, Barbara, to foster, adopt, and retain custody of their many children despite nearly 20 complaints and attempted complaints of abuse, neglect, maltreatment, and licensing violations. Meanwhile, the Army gave Frodsham security clearances and sensitive jobs at a time when his illicit sexual practices made him vulnerable to blackmail. Yep. What's going on in the military, right? How long has this been going on? I would imagine now with such a liberal and open agenda that they're putting on kids, and the liberal and open agenda that they're putting in the Army, that this is going on way more often than we can ever suspect. But how long has this stuff been going on within the military? This is a quote in respect to them suspecting blackmail. He would have been an obvious target to foreign intelligence services because of his role and his location, said Frank Figliuzzi, the former assistant director of counterintelligence for the FBI. Fort Huachuca, I think it's called, is one of the more sensitive installations in the continental United States. People with security issues should not be there. In addition to NetCom, where Frodsham worked, Fort Huachuca is home to a contingent of Army's Intelligence and Security Command, according to its website. Public relation officials for Huachuca confirmed that Frodsham was a program director for NetCom before he was arrested on child sex abuse charges. They declined to say whether Frodsham was disciplined after returning home from Afghanistan or whether the Army ever considered him a security risk. Frodsham, former Sergeant Randall Bishak, and a third man not associated with the Army are all serving prison terms for the roles they played in child sex abuse ring. Let me say this again. What is going on in the military? I know that there's good people, I'm not going to disregard that, but also we now know that there's some funny business going on. I'm going to repeat this part again. Frodsham, his former sergeant, all right, let me read this right. Frodsham, former sergeant, Randall Bishak, and a third man, so there's two, not associated with the Army, are all serving prison sentences for the roles they played in the sex abuse ring. So that's what I mean. The Army, it seems to be in this case, there were three people: Frodsham, the Army sergeant, which I'm going to guess that this is Randall Bishak, Frodsham, the Army sergeant, and then a third man who's just a third person in all of this, who are all in cahoots with doing this, right? So they're not just, this is a national security concern now, along with them being perverts. They're actually putting a lot of people at risk by including a third party in their dark affairs. But the investigation is continuing because Sierra Vista police received additional men that took part. Now the criminal investigation is spilling over into civil court, where the two of Frodshem's adopted sons have filed separate lawsuits against the state for licensing David and Barbara Frodsham as foster parents in a home where they say they were physically and sexually abused throughout their lives. I mean, why is it every single night now that we're reading this? It's been I want to say it's been like 3 consecutive nights. We've talked about stories like this where foster care parents, they have been re-exploiting their the foster care children. They leave situations that are more dire, they re-enter into situations that are also dire, and they get abused and re-exploited. Foster care. A third adopted son filed a suit Tuesday in Arizona State Court in Cochise County, said attorney Lynn Cadigan, who represents all three in the latest complaint. 19-year-old Trevor Frodsham says caseworkers missed or overlooked numerous signs that David and Barbara Frodsham were unfit parents. These included 2002 sex abuse complaint filed with the local police by one of the Frodsham's biological daughters against her older biological brother, and the fact that David and Barbara Frodsham were themselves victims of child sex abuse. Trevor's allegations echo those featured in an earlier suit filed by his older biological brother, Ryan Frodsham, and one filed by Neil Taylor, both of whom were adopted into the Frodsham household. In an interview with AP, Associated Press, Ryan Frodsham and his adoptive father began sexually abusing him when he was 9 or 10 years old, and the abuse continued into his teens when David Frodsham began offering his sons sexual services to other men. Makes me throw up thinking about it, Ryan said. In his lawsuit, Ryan Frodsham said that the state was informed that David and Barbara Frodsham were physically abusing their children by slapping them in the face, pinching them, hitting them with a wooden spoon, putting hot sauce in their mouths, pulling them by the hair, bending their fingers back to inflict pain, forcing them to hold cans with their arms extended for a long periods of time, and refusing to let them use the bathroom unless the door remained open. In his AP interview, Ryan said Barbara never sexually abused him, but walked into the room where David was abusing him at least twice. She knew what was going on, he said. The lawsuits and related legal filings also say investigators with the Department of Child Safety and caseworkers with the Catholic Community Services with subcontracts foster and adoption work from the state failed to effectively follow up on 19 complaints and attempted complaints regarding the Frodsham home spanning more than a decade. The complaints began in 2002 when the Frodshams applied for their foster care license and continued until 2015 when David Frodsham was charged with disorderly conduct and driving drunk with children in his car, prompting the state to suspend their license indefinitely and removing all foster children from their home, although the charges were never later dismissed. 5 months later, the Army deployed Frodsham to Afghanistan, where he was ordered back to Arizona after only 4 months of service. Whew, this is a long article. This is a long article. But I think you guys see that part with the son. I want to move forward into the abuse ring here, okay? Just to be respectful of time. So let's go into the details of the child sex abuse ring that was allegedly ran by this guy. The Frodsham case started out as child sex abuse investigations often do, with the undercover Homeland Security agent lurking in a chat room favored by child pornographers. The Philadelphia-based agent using Keek messaging app ran into someone calling himself Pup Brass, who was posting videos and photos labeled pedos, pic, and vid. Keek offers users a degree of anonymity, but it stores IP addresses, which help identify a device's connection to the internet and can help identify the device's owner. According to Sierra Vista Police the probable cause statement, federal and local law enforcement agents using IP addresses and other information, some gleaned from social media accounts, soon determined that Pup Brass was Sergeant Randall Bishak, the earlier mentioned Army sergeant. When they raided his home, seizing computers, cell phones, tablets, CDs, holding child pornography, Bishak confessed that he'd been having sex with a 59-year-old man called Dave and his teenage son. In at least one instance, Bishak had secretly recorded the sex on video. He was told investigators that he had Frodsham discussed having sex with small children, that Frodsham had supplied him with at least one of the little ones. Again, the military. Sometimes these guys are just shielded by their status, you know? It is such a noble position to have to serve your country, but my gosh, that doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. Thomas Ransford, who specializes in child sex abuse cases for the Sierra Vista Police, was no stranger to Frodsham. In the mid-2000s, he served as a military police officer at Fort Huachuca, however it is pronounced. I apologize for the pronunciation. When Frodsham was a director of training plans, mobilization, and security, he said, "So I knew him. I was familiar with him and attended meetings with him," Ransford recalled. He also knew that Frodsham's foster kids were always in trouble. Then Ransford first questioned Frodsham. He denied everything. He was pompous, like he was the smartest guy in the room, Ransford recalled. The Ransford played the video Bishak had secretly taken of himself having three-way sex with Frodsham and his adopted son, Ryan, and Frodsham began to acknowledge his crimes. Ryan Frodsham also initially denied his father had abused him. Ryan appeared very defensive of his father and did not want to implicate him in any misconduct, Ransford wrote in a probable cause statement. But when Ransford showed him compromising photographs seized from the Bishak's cell phone, Ryan began to open up. Over the course of several months, Ransford said that Ryan identified others he said were part of his father's child sex abuse ring, fueling the continuing investigation. "There's others we're aware of," Ransford said. "It's open. The Frodsham child sex abuse ring is part of a cluster of sex abuse cases that have come to light in Cochise County in Arizona over the last several years, including several involving U.S. Border Patrol agents, two of whom worked at Naco, Arizona border crossing among them." Border Patrol agents. And you know what? This all doesn't surprise me because, I mean, if judging how the way that they, not all, when I say agents, I don't mean all of them, but people use their position to do these things. And if you have access, like frontline access to children or what have you, they get into things like this if they have like a nefarious intent, of course. John Daly the third, and again, I just want to say that not all agents, not all military are like this. I'm just saying like what's going on within, if it's protected and it's not talked about. John Daly III, a year ago, authorities arrested the recently retired Border Patrol agent after DNA evidence led them to suspect him at least 3 rapes and could to be considered whether he is so-called East Valley rapist who terrorized women outside Phoenix throughout the 90s. Prosecutors in Maricopa and Cochise counties have charged him with multiple counts of sexual assault and kidnapping. Daly, who is being held without bail, has pleaded not guilty. Dana Thornhill, a year ago, Thornhill was sentenced to a 40-year prison term after pleading guilty to years of sexually abusing his two children. Thornhill was charged following a standoff with police, which he holed up in a local church. At the time, Thornhill was the chaplain of the NACO border crossing. Paul Adams in 2017. Adams was charged with raping his two daughters, one of whom was just 6 weeks old, taking videos of the sexual assault and posting them to the internet. Adams, who took his own life before standing in trial, was also stationed at the NACO border crossing. Ransford believes that the cluster of the cases should be attributed to good police work and effective prosecution, and I do applaud that. Right there, it's all an infiltration of several industries, right? So there, just like there are good police, there are bad police. Just like there are good border patrol agents, there are bad border patrol agents. Just like there are good military servicemen, there are bad military servicemen. So I applaud the statement that this was discovered because there were the good law enforcement officers that actually wanted to, catch these guys, put them through the justice system. Ransford believes that it's attributed to good police work, which gives victims and others the confidence to report child sex abuse. People report because they know something's going to be done about it, he said. But Cadigan, the attorney representing the Frodsham brothers and Neil Taylor, wonders whether child sex abuse in southern Arizona is on the rise. Law enforcement has been very effective, and I appreciate their efforts, but I've been taking these cases for 30 years and I've never been so busy, she said. All right, this is an important part here, because it goes into the Department of Protective Services. The physical and sexual abuse allegedly endured by the Frodsham brothers and Neil Taylor occurred at the time when Arizona's child welfare system was embroiled with scandal. In 2013, officials revealed that what was then the Department of Protective Services had a backlog of more than 6,500 abuse and neglect complaints it had never investigated. The revelation prompted the then Governor Jan Brewer to dissolve the entire department and create a new cabinet level office called the Department of Child Safety. It's evident that our child welfare system is broken, impeded by years of operational failure, said Brewer, a Republican. Underlying the scandal were deep budget cuts to family support services, leading to soaring abuse and neglect complaints, and what an Auditor General's report would later refer to as an unmanageable workload, staff turnover, and the limited experience of some CPS supervisors and newly hired investigators. In 2014, an analysis produced for the state legislature showed that the increase in workloads in Arizona during the decade that ended in 2012 was greater than any other state but one. It showed that had a response time for abuse and neglect complaints ballooned from 63 hours to nearly 250 hours between 2009 and 2012. In its defense against Ryan Frodsham's lawsuit, the state is trying to exclude any mention of the department's troubled past. There is no evidence that the types of problems that led to the dissolution of CPS has any relation to the impact of this case, the state had said in a pretrial motion. But David and Barbara Frodsham were licensed as foster parents in 2002 at the dawn of what perhaps is the department's most troubled period, and formally adopted the three men, going to court about a decade later, shortly after the system collapsed. The jury is entitled to the full picture, lawyers for Ryan Frodsham said. In this AP interview, Ryan Frodsham said filed his lawsuit for one reason: I want the state to admit what it did was wrong. The state, I mean, there's so many different levels that we just went through, so many different positions too. This is David Frodsham, his mugshot. And I think that's the army sergeant. Anyway, incredible. I mean, incredible. One of many stories, by the way, one of many stories that you will not hear about because we're all distracted. But this is the epidemic that's going on in our country. All right, we'll top off the hour with this. A bit of, I guess, some positive news because they busted these guys in Southern Oregon. Undercover operation nets 5 suspected child predators attempting to meet minors for sex. In Southern Oregon, 5 suspects were arrested by the Southern Oregon Child Exploitation Team last weekend as part of a months-long undercover operation to identify individuals attempting to meet with juveniles of Jackson County for sex. The suspects arrested spanned the ages of 35 to 72 years old and traveled from throughout Oregon, including Warren, Redmond, and Klamath Falls, as well as Montague, California. One suspect local to the Rogue Valley was arrested in Gold Hill, said Jackson County Sheriff's Office in a press release. The first arrest happened Friday at 4 p.m. when the 35-year-old Benjamin Lee Buhler of Klamath Falls drove to Medford to meet a juvenile for sex. JCSO said SOCET contacted Buhler as he was attempting to meet the child. He is facing charges of first-degree online sexual corruption of a child, luring a minor, as he's been logged at the Jackson County Jail, according to the Herald News. Buhler is a 2016 recipient of Father of the Year Award from the National Fathers and Family Coalition of America. 39-year-old Justin Eldridge of Montague, California, was arrested a few hours later, and he traveled to Medford to engage in sexual activity with the juvenile. Eldridge has been federally charged with persuading any individual who has not attains the age of 18 years old to engage in sexual activity and travel to intend to engage in illicit sexual conduct, JCSO said. Eldridge was logged at the Jackson County Jail on federal hold. The case is federally prosecuted in the District of Oregon. 59-year-old Jack Ulrey of Crooked River Ranch, Oregon, was arrested at the 8 p.m. that night after traveling near Redmond, Oregon, to provide a child with illegal narcotics and engage in sexual activity with them. Ulrey was logged in Jackson County Jail and is faced with 2 counts each of first and second degree online sexual corruption of a child, luring a minor, and attempting to use a child in display of sexually explicit conduct. Day 2 of the operation started with the arrest of a 72-year-old William Henry Trapnell of Warren, Oregon. Trapnell then drove 5 hours from Warren to Medford to meet with the child for sex and was arrested while attempting to contact the child at 3:38 p.m. Trapnell is charged with first and second degree online sexual corruption of a child and luring a minor, and was lodged at the Jackson County Jail. The final arrest was on Saturday. 63-year-old Leonard Allen Weedman of Gold Hill. Weedman made plans to meet a juvenile for sex as soon as the child was able to sneak away and not get caught, JCSO said. SOCET arrested Weedman at 4:55 p.m. and he was attempting to meet up with the juvenile in Gold Hill. Weedman is charged with 2 counts of both first and second degree online sexual corruption of a child, luring a minor, and using a child in display of sexually explicit conduct, and was lodged in the Jackson County Jail. During this investigation, an individual was discovered trading nearly 400 child pornography videos of prepubescent children. This child porn case is an ongoing investigation of a suspect believed to be residing in the USA. Investigators have a reason to believe these suspects may have other victims. If anyone has additional information on the suspects pictured, please call your local law enforcement agency or the Jackson County Sheriff's Office tip line at 541-774-8333. All right, so that is in Southern Oregon. So if any Southern Oregon individuals, let me see if there are any more pictures here. They're a little bit slow to load. Oh, they blurred out their faces. I don't like when they blur out their faces. They should be proud. I mean, old man, look at this. Just like going out meeting children. So, oh man, it was always a rough one every single day, right? Like reporting these things are all new stories every single day, and all of them are intense stories. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Unravel with Natalie Denise, Nightly with Natalie, with news from the Daily Traffic. That is my other platform that I report the news to on Instagram. You can follow it at Natalie Denise. Guys, I also have a new subscription service on nataliedenise.com. I am posting exclusive videos there of subjects that I cannot talk about on open social media, because then they will deplatform everything. So I got to keep it there. But I will also be going through a series of identifying the people in Epstein's little black book. I already have one video on. I'm going to work on the second video along with all my other production schedule. But with that being said, there's a lot that needs to be talked about, and I can't talk about it out in the open. So that's nataliedenise.com. Thank you so much, Keem, for posting that link up. www.nataliedenise.com. $8 a month is it's going to help me support me in all my work and all my production, as well as my livelihood. So I appreciate that. And with that being said, thank you so much for your support. Thank you for always hanging out with me nightly. Be sure to share this podcast with somebody. Tell them that nobody is talking about this news, but you can hear it Monday through Friday. I think I'm going to change the time for those of you that watch me live. I might do it a little bit earlier because I got to get to bed a little earlier now. So maybe we're going to change the time to 8:30 p.m. Central. So that way I can end by 9:30, have plenty of time to edit and post, and then have some bedtime. So I would appreciate you guys if you still stay tuned. If I moved it an hour earlier, I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for watching me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you guys a lot. You guys rock. Have a great day. And if you're listening to me in the morning, have a great day. I will talk to you guys in tomorrow's episode. Mwah. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Unravel with Natalie Denise. Please give this podcast 5 stars.